Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, in whichever realms of existence you are, whichever mind states you're in, whatever conditions you're in, you are welcome to my channel. I'm going to do a little bit of a different video today, showing you my altar and current Honzon. Obviously, this will be changing as I become more aligned with the Hangwanji Ha traditions, Hangwanji Ha tradition, authentic teachings, especially the Honzon and the statue depictions here will definitely be changing eventually when I get the money and opportunity to purchase different Honzons. But anyway, I wanted to do a video today to talk about Shinjin, a certain aspect of Shinjin, or the process of Shinjin, I should say. And before I have that discussion, I wanted to read something from the collected works of Shinran Shonen, or the ShinranWorks website, I should say. Sorry, the ShinranWorks website has a glossary, and I want to read the definition of Shinjin from there, which I think is very excellent, and is based on the scholarship of the Hangwanji Ha. Spans the scholarship and authentic transmission of the Hangwanji, Nishi Hangwanji tradition spans hundreds of years, literally, and right down to the present day of scholarship and transmission of the authentic teaching. And and that scholarship, the present day scholarship, that is a heritage of, those centuries of scholarship and transmission of the Dharma, is the scholarship that went into the creation of the collected works of Shinran website, as well as the glossary therein. And so to me, it's authoritative. As far as I'm concerned, that those centuries of scholarship and transmission of the Dharma are, right down to the present, through the present day Hangwanji scholarship and transmission of the Dharma. To me, this is, for me, this has authority. This has weight. This has great weight. Even the glossary of the collected works of Shinran website, because everything that's there is taken from, is a combination of all of the things that are written in the collected works of Shinran about the topics that are in the glossary. So anyway, just wanted to give that little preface to this reading. So this is the definition of Shinjin from the glossary of the ShinranWorks.com website. So, Shinjin. One's entrusting to Amida's primal vow, which is at the same time the negation of one's calculative thinking brought about by Amida's working. It denotes the central religious experience of Shin Buddhism, and literally means man's quote, true, real, and sincere heart and mind, unquote. Makoto no Kokoro, which is given by Amida Buddha. This heart-mind has basically two aspects: a non-dichotomous identity, wherein the heart and mind of Amida and the heart and mind of the practitioner are one, and a dichotomous relationship wherein the two are mutually exclusive and in dynamic interaction. Used as an adjective, Shin, which is different from the term Shin Buddhism, has the meaning of true, quote, true, real, and sincere, unquote. As a verb, it means, quote, to trust oneself to the Buddha, unquote. As an act which is made possible by the working of the true, real, and sincere heart and mind of Amida Buddha. These two meanings are inseparable. Thus, while Shinjin is experienced by human beings, its source, contents, and consummation are to be found not in one, but in Buddha. There are 2 points to be noticed concerning the oneness that Shinjin signifies. First, it is not a simple identity. According to Shinran, the mind of Buddha, according to Shinran, the mind of Amida Buddha is true, real, and sincere, while the minds of foolish beings are empty and transitory. Since, quote, empty means not real and not sincere, transitory means not true. Notes on Essentials of Faith alone. Shinjin is a oneness of that which is true and real, which is exact, which is it. Sorry, let me read this again. Sorry, since quote empty means not real and not sincere, transitory means not true. Notes on the Essentials of Faith alone. Shinjin is a oneness of that which is true and real with its exact opposite. They are one and yet two, they are two and yet one. To express the structure of this oneness philosophically, the mind of the foolish being and the mind of Amida are identical, and at the same time they stand in opposition of mutual exclusion and negation, of truth and reality versus emptiness and transience. In religious terms, the oneness of Shinjin expresses the working of great compassion, Buddha's wisdom, taking persons of evil, foolish being possessed of blind passions, into itself, never to abandon them. The second point concerning the oneness of Shinjin is that it lies at the heart of Shinran's Buddhism, for it signifies the attainment of Buddhahood. Shinran's teaching, then, is not one of salvation through faith, for Shinjin is not a means to salvation, but salvation itself. Let me read that again. Shinran's teaching, then, is not one of salvation through faith, for Shinran is not a means to salvation, but salvation itself. Its centrality can be seen in Shinran's emphasis on other power, which means, quote, means to be free of any form of calculation, unquote, Lamp of the Latter Ages. When one is free of self-power, the self-centered working of one's intellect and will to achieve enlightenment, this freedom of one's own heart and mind from self-power is itself other power. In other words, other power is the Buddha's power that has become one's own Shinjin. It is the power of the heart and mind of the person in whom self-power falls away and disappears as oneness with the Buddha's mind is realized. Let me read that last sentence again. It is the power of the heart and mind of the person in whom self-power falls away and disappears as oneness with the Buddha's mind is realized. Actually, I'm going to read the last 2 sentences again because they kind of go together. In other words, the other power of the Buddha's power, start again. In other words, the other power is the Buddha's power that has become one's own Shinjin. It is the power of the heart and mind of the person in whom self-power falls away and disappears as oneness with the Buddha's mind is realized. In the realization of Shinjin, one becomes a foolish being, Bambu, for the first time, in that one awakens to one's own true nature. But simultaneously, one attains Buddhahood that will be fully realized through the working of Jin and Honi. This complex structure of Shinjin is expressed in a number of important concepts. For example, since the oneness in Shinjin means that person that since the oneness in Shinjin means that persons of Shinjin have attained the Buddha's mind, which is itself Buddhahood, that is to be fully realized at the moment karmic bonds are severed at the end of life, Shinran states that they are the equal of Tathagatas. Let me read that again. For example, since the oneness in Shinjin means that persons of Shinjin have attained the Buddha's mind, which is itself Buddhahood, that is to be fully realized at the moment karmic roots are severed at the end of life, Shinran states that they are the equal of the Tathagatas. Equal does not mean identical, but points also to remaining differences. A Tathagata is completely free of blind passions, but persons of Shinjin are not. Nevertheless, the structure of Shinjin is such that while they are human beings, they are also Tathagata, Buddha, for they live by the Buddha's mind, other power. So that, I just think that's an amazing definition of Shinjin, and boiling down or not boiling down, but condensing all of, as best as possible, condensing all of Shinran's teachings about Shinjin, or what he wrote about Shinjin, into these 5 paragraphs is pretty amazing, and I think quite well done. And so the part I want to kind of, is that last paragraph. The part I want to start by emphasizing today, is basically the twofold conviction that happens with Shinjin. When a person truly sees themselves as a Bambu, as the evil person, as the object of Amida's salvation, and at the same time entrusts 100% completely to Amida Buddha. The two happen simultaneously in Shinjin. And and there's a lot to Shinjin. People call it entrusting or faith. A lot of times it's referred to as faith, but it's so much more. If you read Shinran Shonen's writings, it is so much more than just the word faith. It conveys there's so much more to it. It's so expansive. The depth of the meaning of Shinjin, the breadth of the meaning of Shinjin, it's endless, really. It's inconceivable, one could say. But anyway, so what I want to talk about is the Shinjin as a process, or the process of coming to Shinjin, I'll say, or the process of Amida bringing us to Shinjin, I should say, rather. In that it's always, when I am speaking, when I think of the Dharma teaching, as I understand it, it's always the reverse polarity Buddhism. It's always Amida Buddha bringing his enlightenment, his Buddha mind, his realization, his practice, his teaching to us. Amida Buddha giving us his mind, his sincere mind, And so, and that process happens through Amida's power, through Amida's other power, through his vow, through the Nembutsu. And also there's a ripening of one's own past causes, past stored good, which is Amida's stored good, which is Amida. That stored good of one's own life is Amida's stored good, is Amida arranging that, is Amida bringing about my own stored good from the past that brought me to be able to encounter not only Buddhism but the Amida, Buddhism, the Jodo Shinshu, the true teaching, and to encounter Amida and hear Amida's call. So it's kind of a process of all that. Now, it's inconceivable how it happens, so I'm not trying to explain it. I'm not trying to calculate it, although there's going to be speculation and calculation here, just of, because I don't consider myself a person yet of settled Shinjin. Keep that in mind. So when I speak of the process by which Amida brings about Shinjin, that's probably a better thing to say than the process of Shinjin. But tomato. In my life, I've had, since I've been on the Jodo Shinshu path, since about the mid noughties, mid to late 2000s. In that time, I have had occasion where I thought I had Shinjin, and then realized later on that I didn't. And this happened a handful of times. This has happened a handful of times. I've talked about this quite openly over the years. I had, up until this past year, really, up until recent months, really, I would say that since somewhere in 2022, up until early 2022, we'll say, I had thought it was something solely that I had done to contrive to myself, a contrivance to myself, but a convincing of myself that I had Shinjin. In my own calculation, in my own, mode, that self-power mode of trying to get it done myself, trying to get myself into the Pure Land, trying to figure out how to get Shinjin, all that stuff that I thought on a subconscious level or a conscious level or whatever, I contrived to myself because I wanted it so badly that I wanted Shinjin. So that's kind of what I thought up until, like I said, earlier this year. But I think might have been even a bit later into this year that I thought that. But in recent months, especially, I have kind of am starting to, I think, through the process of deep listening, through the process of working with a good friend on the path, a guide, a Dharma guide, Kyokan, and working with my Dharma and brothers in an ongoing Dharma study. We meet on a weekly, generally try to meet on a weekly basis, and then we are almost every day conversing via a messenger in a Dharma study and discussion. Through that process and through the process of getting tied more into the authentic teaching, through the Hangguanji Ha tradition, through the Nishi Hangguanji tradition, um, and broadening the scope from which I took my, you know, I would receive teaching, and actually, really fully engaging in the deep listening process, part of which is to have the in-depth Dharma dialogue that I'm having with a friend on the path and working with a good teacher like, Aiken Kobai Sensei, really speaking up, whatever it is, like Renryo said, expressing all my doubts, all my questions, all the barriers, holding nothing back. Now that I'm, been in that process of doing that for about a year now, over a year now, really. In the past few months, my thinking has changed about this, me quote unquote convincing myself I had Shinjin. I think, or something has now occurred to me, I should say. I speculate whether this is part of these occurrences, handful of occurrences where I had this glimpse of what it's like to see myself as a bamboo, is truly well, in a very deep way, see myself as a bamboo, as a foolish being of blind, ruled by blind passions, and simultaneously glimpsing what it's like, or some facsimile of what it's like to truly entrust myself to Amida Buddha, to truly fully entrust in that way, have faith in that way, to have those handful of glimpses. And it's like I said, I think it's happened 3, 4, 5 times, probably 4 or 5 times over the past, since the early to late 2000s, where I thought I had Shinjin and I didn't. I wonder whether that glimpse of some facsimile or some degree or some angle or some sensibility of Shinjin was part of the process of Amida Buddha giving me his mind, giving me, transferring his merit to me, all that stuff, the way that Shinjin arises through Amida Buddha's power, through Amida Buddha's vow, through Amida Buddha's Nembutsu, through his mind, his enlightenment, his realization, his practice, his teaching. If these moments, these periods of time, sometimes it was a few days, sometimes it was a week, sometimes it was a few hours, sometimes it was a year or more, where I thought I had Shinjin and I didn't. I wonder whether, in that year, actually, technically, it was kind of off and on in that year where I was experiencing that. But anyway, I speculate whether that is part of the process. So that those glimpses were part of the process of Amida working in my life, of Amida Buddha causing Shinjin to arise in me as my karmic causes ripen, as to whatever extent they do. I'm not saying any of those moments were settled Shinjin or were the one thought moment of Shinjin or anything like that, but they were glimpses. They were an experience. They were a true. I see them now as possibly. I'll say possibly. I'm not going to say for sure, but possibly a true experience of that process of Amida working, of Amida's light, of Amida's working, the working of his vow in my life. So I kind of, seeing that as a possibility, at least. It's kind of a much more positive way of looking at it. Or it could be both. It could be both. It was a contrivance of my mind, and Amida Buddha used that as a skillful means to work to for his working to happen, you know, for me to have that glimpse and so on. And because most of the time when I had these experiences, except for one of them, except for one time I had this experience, so 3 or 4 times when I had this experience, I didn't really have proper guidance or proper I wasn't really properly working with a good friend of the path, wasn't properly working with a good teacher, wasn't properly fully deeply listening, wasn't properly, really trying to read the teachings and saying them butsu and all of those things. I wasn't really properly doing that, so I didn't really have the guidance to understand moments like that. And I think, and now that I have had that in this past year, and I've been engaging in the process in the way you're supposed to. So again, I'm taking responsibility for this. Now that I'm fully engaging in the process of Jodo Shinshu, in a full, holistic, immersive way, now I have the guidance that I need to understand these experiences to some degree, whereas I didn't for those 3 or 4 first times that it happened. I didn't. That 4th or 5th time it did happen a few months ago, or several months ago, whatever it was. It was earlier this year, where I thought I had for a few hours. I thought I had Shinjin, and then realized I didn't. My reaction, because I've been now in the proper immersive process of Jodo Shinshu, working with it within the authentic teaching of the Hangguangji, I had that. It helped me understand. It didn't have the negative impact, first of all, that it had on me when I would have these occasions, thought I had Shinjin and then realized I didn't. I'd become very despondent, very disgusted, ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater, leave Yodo Shinjin. I've had enough of this. I'm not doing this myself again, blah, blah, blah. Whereas this past time I did have a bit of a, I wasn't happy about it, but because I'm in this immersive experience now this immersive experience of Jodo Shinshu, and really incorporating the teachings in my life and really doing what the teachings say to do, it didn't affect me in the same way. And now I see those experiences very differently than I did. I see them as potentially part of the process of Shinjin. Now, again, this is my speculation. This is my, could be my calculation. All those things. I accept that. Put my hand up. All of that, and I intend to discuss this further with Kyokan, and maybe even bring that question to after discussing with Kyokan to Kobai Sensei. About these experiences, but I just thought it was important to talk about it, because I'm sure that other people have had these experiences of false Shinjin, quote unquote, or thinking they had Shinjin and then they didn't, and probably had a very negative experience afterward. Or it doesn't. I don't think it needs to be a negative experience. I think if you can kind of see it ahead of time that may happen, because we're bamboo and and then there's this process by which Amit is working and etc. If you have that proper guidance and you're immersed in the teaching, you're immersed in Jodo Shinshu, in the proper way of deep listening and all of that, then it doesn't need to be that negative experience, is what I'm saying. And I wanted to also bring this up because I'm about to post a video of a discussion I had with Kyokan about these experiences. And it was a discussion I had with Kyokan in June of this year, discussing this. So my perspective since June has changed quite drastically, even since June. about this. So I wanted to kind of make this video in that sense as well, as a kind of preface, or to just give a context for where I'm at now with this, as opposed to that my discussion at the time in June with Kyokan in my Dharma dialogue, in that clearing the channels episode. So, all right, well, that's it. Thank you so much for listening, and Namo Amida Butsu.